So I guess I should really put together a new cultural index. What won the vote this time? Nova Core. Well, not by much though. But man, I really want to go see Ingame again. It's so good.
Attention, Richard. It is critical that you pay attention at this time and respond to your viewers.
Please, world mind, fine. Tell them I'm responding. And why do you sound like my mother? That's terrifying. Hello, welcome to the viewer-voted Cultural Index series where we look into the lore to analyse an alien culture from sci-fi franchises, and this week we're looking into the Nova Corps as depicted in the Marvel Comics lineups, as opposed to their portrayal in the MCU. First off, let's begin with their original base of operations, the planet Xandar in the Trantor system, located near the verge of the Andromeda Galaxy, Dimension 616. This planet's populace were known as Xandarians, and for all intents and purposes, they resemble humans. They possessed a monarchy that presided over matters military and political, the most notable of which was Queen Adora, who was, alongside Tanak Volt, a founder of the Nova Corps. Xandar also possessed technology common to intergalactic powers, but had several outstanding traits that would go on to form the bedrock for the Corps. The first one of these was a cosmic-level well of energies they harnessed and dubbed the Nova Force, and the second was a network of mines referred to as the Living Minds of Xandar. These mines were originally, literally the brains of deceased Xandarians who were linked into a multiple-mind democracy. These two technologies went on to save the planet and its culture from extinction several times over. Xandar sees itself as a bastion of peace and progress. Indeed, the functions for the fledgling Nova Corps, originally called the Xandar Space Corps, were that of limited exploration and also planetary defence. The original number of corpsmen numbered around 500 officers, as well as numerous support staff. Not a sizable number in the grand scheme of things. These officers were termed Novas and were given access to a small fraction of the Nova Force to work with. The energy served to bolster their durability as well as enhance their strength and reflexes. It also substituted the body's own energy and rest needs, reducing the empowered individual's need to sleep and eat. The most notable power it provided, however, was the ability to fly, with a combination of gravitational manipulation and expending energy in blasts that gave them their namesakes. With higher ranks in the Nova Corps, greater access to this energy source was permitted, allowing for larger feats. Higher power levels could create energy blasts using the same system that allowed them to fly, and they were able to emit radiation and electrostatic signals of all kinds. Even higher levels allowed for the creation of stargates, effectively wormholes to other parts of the universe. The Nova Force was a limitless power source, though only a finite amount was ever present at one time. No one individual could possess the entire Nova Force without aid, as this would severely damage the body over a prolonged exposure and break their mind in the short term, rendering them insane. Though it is mentioned that a single charged shot from an officer with the full force at their disposal could destroy everything within a 3-mile radius. This swirling mass of energy was eventually used as a power source for Xandar itself. I mentioned that the planet faced extinction several times over in its history, and I wasn't exaggerating. Originally the planet was attacked by Zor and almost destroyed if not for the intervention of another entity, but the planet's domed cities were then attacked by the Skrulls shortly thereafter. Nebula would then go on to lead another raid against Xandar, and this time the populace was almost reduced to zero with only a few survivors. With the diminished numbers of Xandarians, a Nova called Garthan Sol ended up possessing a much higher percentage of the Nova Force, and after losing his mind, the Nova Force was used to reawaken the Xandarian world mind. It is impossible to talk of the Xandarian culture without mentioning the world mind. This is the artificial intelligence at the centre of the Nova Corps, and the entire culture of Xandar seemingly developed from the living minds after the raising of Xandar. Technically, it is a Class G collective artificial sentience created to safeguard and maintain all of Xandarian culture. This is its priority 1, and its second, to protect and preserve itself. As an evolution of the living minds, it is a conglomeration of the minds of Xandar, both alive and dead. It functions as a database for all of their acquired knowledge and is the custodian of the Nova Force. This means that it decides when and how the Force is allocated. Over time, it adopts the responsibilities of communications and intelligence analysis too. Later in its lifetime, it disengages from its mainframe on Xandar and became a being of pure data or energy, as demonstrated when it is able to upload itself into other networks, such as a Nova Helm, or even a dormant Ego the Living Planet. Honestly, the exact nature of the world mind is unknown. It is clearly more than just information, but it is not limited to the organic nature of its founding minds. When a Xandarian dies, not only is their knowledge uploaded to the world mind, but their personality template too. The world mind has adopted a personality in order to better communicate with its charges, meaning that the world mind has emotions. If the world mind is contaminated or corrupted, however, it can reformat itself and create a new personality to preserve its functions. In its disembodied state, it has shown the ability to infiltrate most security networks with ease and provide telepathic shielding. As it literally houses the memories of every Xandarian and Nova Corps member, with the survival and reactivation of the world mind after Xandar was raised, the entire populace was recreated, albeit as clones, complete with their experiences and personalities restored. This is how Xandar avoided extinction for a third time. In its new status quo, Xandar decided to expand the Nova Corps, recruit from a wider pool, and act as a more universal police force. It has been made clear that their prior attempts at self-preservation were woefully inadequate, and so they set about trying to bring order to the universe. It flourished into a much larger organisation, and at the time it had at least 27 battalions. As a battalion is a variable amount, this is a difficult number to objectify, but it could be at least 21,600 if a battalion numbered 800 persons. Despite its larger structure, the Nova Corps was not an army outright, but closer to a militia or a police force. It had some policies, such as a strict uniform code, a code of conduct, and an on-duty to recreation cycle, as well as permitted leaves of absence. To correspond with its larger size, it invested more in interstellar travel and created several spaceports which managed the incoming and outgoing traffic through Nova policed systems. The Nova Corps established numerous precincts around the Andromeda and Milky Way galaxies, from which the Novas were assigned to operate in specific sectors under their jurisdiction. The uniform of the Nova Corps was made of an unknown material that could act as a both solid and fabric as necessary, allowing for a mixture of protection and flexibility. They typically wear dark blue with highlights of yellow or gold, and featured the Xandarian crest. Most iconic were the helmets, referred to unflatteringly as buckets by many. These came in several varieties depending on the requirements, most commonly the domed and visored versions. The uniform offered 6 hours of air for travel in a vacuum and featured minor variations for different species. The helmets had advanced communications, heads-up displays, and sensors in them which tied into the Worldminds network and the Common Band, a form of intranet. They continued to operate their series of ranks and allocated the Nova Force access on the need and seniority of the officers. At the bottom was the recruit, often depicted as a trainee wearing dark red uniforms. Above them were the corpsmen, who had a limited access to the Nova Force and relied more on the use of tech and ships for travel. Above the corpsmen was the Millennian, who was allocated a higher percentage of the Nova Force, and they wore a single sun crest on their chest and the beginnings of the Xandarian sigil on their helm. Above them was the Denarian, who was afforded more power and responsibility. Then finally the Centurion. A Centurion could access as much of the Nova Force as was safe, which allowed them the ability to open stargates, among other large feats. These all reported to the Nova Prime, who made decisions based on the Worldminds' recommendations, a position once synonymous with the royalty of Xandar. Of course, trouble would find Xandar once again in the form of the Annihilation War, in which it was almost entirely wiped out once again. As before, though, the Worldmind survived and uploaded itself, along with the entirety of the Nova Force, into a single individual, one Richard Ryder of Earth. After a long time, the Worldmind was successful in creating the beginnings of a new Nova Corps under the mentorship of Ryder and the Worldmind. But these efforts were stagnated once again with a greater threat from an alternate reality. The Nova Force and Worldmind were cut off from the universe, and it seemed as if Xandar was forever lost. However, comics. Post-annihilation, it was revealed that there was a branch of the Nova Corps known as the Supernovas that were effectively a Black Ops branch. These officers were equipped with self-contained Nova Force generators and a mini world mind in each black helm. However, these officers were originally derived from criminals who had hunted the Nova Corps and taken their tech as a trophy, but were folded into the system for their aptitude and greater moral flexibility. Naturally, existence of this division was kept suppressed from the general core. One thing that stands out from the Xandarian culture is that they have been all but destroyed. Xandar was a planet and entire populace with only 500 officers in the core originally, but they paid a hefty price for their peaceful ways, being attacked time and time again, and by much more capable military forces, despite their advanced technology. Over time, the World Mind has been able to restore them, but they returned with a greater focus on protection, expanding the Nova Corps. Their very monarchy was placed at the position of the Nova Prime in reflection of this, and Xandar has become synonymous with the Nova Corps itself. Fortunately, their peacekeeping ways resulted in the utilisation of the Nova Corps as a galactic police force rather than becoming another race of warmongers, but nonetheless, despite their best efforts, much of the original culture is lost with every catastrophe, and now only the Nova Corps remains. They may be restored in full in time, for so long as the world mind exists, so does the knowledge of every Xandarian and Corpsman who ever lived. But this too was almost lost saving the universe. Thanks for listening to this index. As usual, the viewer votes for the next episode can be seen in the comments below, and the choices for next week are another race heavily involved in AI, the Geth of Mass Effect, actually they are an AI, or a race of hunters from Star Trek's universe, the Hirogen. Thanks for watching once again, and until the next video, I've been Rick, thanks and goodbye. Hey, I got through all of this without making a single Green Lantern comparison.